The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and indeed it is. It is Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone out there. Make sure if you drink, you don't drive, but have a lot of fun and enjoy. Fridays are great, especially Cinco de Mayo. If this is the first time you're tuning into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. How do they do that? They do that by listening right here. Not to me, but to these extraordinary guests that I have here on the show. And today is no different. Today I have an old friend, but she's actually younger than I am, much younger. But I have an old friend here in the studio that is working with an incredible organization that is here in our backyard here in Phoenix by the name of Foundation for Senior Living, otherwise known as FSL. I've got Carrie Smith, the Chief Operating Officer, here in the studio with me. Welcome, Carrie.
Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here, and we are old friends, and I think it's a little deceiving, my age, but thank you very much for that compliment.
Well, you are welcome. The work that Foundations for Senior Living, and I'll use the acronym throughout the show, FSL is doing in our community is extraordinary. And I would love to kick off the show by really talking about really the beginnings, because I think you guys are coming up on almost 50 years.
50 years next year, yeah.
Yeah, so please share with our listeners about FSL, and you guys do so much. And I think you're like the quiet company. A lot of people don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, we used to say we're the best kept secret, and we don't want to be the best kept secret. We want people to know who we are and what we do, so thanks for having me. Yeah, FSL is going to be 50 years old. We started in 1974. Really nonprofit organization here in town with a focus on affordable housing for seniors and then kind of some wraparound services. So that's really where our roots are. We are a program of the Catholic Diocese of Phoenix, but are a separate nonprofit. So again, 1974 right here in Phoenix. Today, we do a whole slew of services. So we're still in the affordable housing business. We have about 25 properties across the state of Arizona, about 1,000 apartments.
And it's not just here, Phoenix.
No, we're all over Arizona with our affordable housing, a lot in the rural communities.
Nice.
So it's something we're definitely mission-driven and passionate about. But then when you start to focus on affordable housing and helping people live independently, well, then you want to start to figure out, well, how do you help them with the next step in life? And how do you help them stay at home and be independent? And so that's what brought us into so many other things that we do on a home and community-based service arena. So thinking about how do we wrap our arms around people? Well, they need health care. They need navigation to health care and social services. They need sometimes meals. They need transportation. They need a place to go for socialization and activities. And so at FSL, that's what we try to do, is make sure that people have connections to those resources. And if we don't do the service ourselves, we make sure we have really good partners in the community that we can refer them to. So thinking about our different lines of business, again, we're doing adult day health services. We partner with communities to do senior centers and home delivered meals. Along with affordable housing, we do a home improvements division. And so there we try to help folks do some minor and major renovations on their home and or energy efficiency upgrades. And a lot of times we're partnering with federal, state, and local dollars to get that work done. And then we do care coordination. We do behavioral health residential. So that's a space that we got into back in the early 90s, helping folks who are living with a serious mental illness, who need to not live in hospital anymore, but really aren't ready to live independent in community. And so they can live in one of our behavioral health residential facilities and get the treatment that they need.
You know, you were talking about the home improvement, and you shared with me at the beginning of our show, you shared that you just received a grant.
Yeah, we
can you,
did.
Can you share, and this is probably not the first grant you've ever received. You've received others, but can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity. So at FSL, we've been doing the weatherization program, which is a national low-income weatherization program through the Department of Energy. We've been partnering with the state and municipalities to deliver that service for 25 plus years. And one of the things that we found when we would go in and do an energy audit and energy upgrades in the home of a low-income individual, predominantly a lot of seniors, is that the work was having a great impact on the health outcomes. We would get letters and cards months later from folks saying, I feel better, my home is comfortable, I haven't been to the hospital this summer, I'm breathing better. We would get all of these letters. And so we said, there's something to this. And so we've been talking to a lot of folks nationally, and an opportunity came up a year ago through the Department of Energy for innovation grant, and we tied it to health. And so we were blessed to receive just this year in March a $2 million grant from the Department of Energy to look at 100 homes.
I love that.
And see if we can get some pre and post data on the impact.
Well, you know, it's interesting because the environment plays a big role in one's health, especially
Yes.
in older adults' health. And certainly when we live in a climate like Arizona, where it gets incredibly hot in these next couple months and cold during the cold months, it's so important to have access to an environment that they can live in successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about somebody who's 85 years old, a lot of folks at that age have chronic conditions, as we know. And we have congestive heart failure or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's 85, it's 120, 118 here in the valley. And if an air conditioner goes out, that's life or death for somebody.
Absolutely.
And at minimum, probably will put somebody in the hospital. And so just by replacing an air conditioner, making sure that you've done some of those energy efficiency upgrades, you prevent one hospitalization or one ER visit, it pays for itself.
You know, when I think of FSL, I mean, you do so many things, and you know, it's kind of like, and I'm not here promoting the attorney learner in a row, but I mean, they have a number that they go out there and advertise with. I mean, people need to know that you're there. I mean, you have the resources, or like you said, you have community partners, so that you're like a one-stop shop for people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we like to say. We have a one-stop shop. So even if we can't help you with a direct service, we will get you connected, warm handoff to a partner in the community. A lot of times people call, they just don't know where to start. So we say, just call our number, 602-285-1800, and ask for help. And we'll get you connected to one of our care coordinators for free to help you with some referrals or to see how to get you connected for services.
And that's 602-285-1800 or fsl.org.
Yes, you can go to our website at www.fsl.org.
And you talk about the care coordinators. I really, and when I first came into my family's business 20 years ago and I got introduced to FSL, Care by Design.
Yeah.
I love the name. I mean, it's brilliant. And I mean, you guys are really designing care plans for people based on where they're at.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Everybody has different needs. And, to think that everybody's going to fit in the same box. I don't like checking boxes. My staff, if you ever talk to my team, they'll tell you, Carrie doesn't like checking boxes because I believe that everybody has a different need and want.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's what we want our Care by Design team to do, is just really listen and help folks where they're at today on the journey.
I think you look at every single person like a snowflake, right? Everybody is different and unique.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we want to try to stereotype them, they're all different and their needs are different and they're unique as well.
Absolutely.
Now, you talk about partnerships. I'm proud to have a partnership with you guys, but I mean, you have partnerships with also agencies, government agencies like Area Agency on Aging and others here in the community. And you also are working with the managed care organizations and the LTEC side.
Yep.
Here's music. Hard to believe, Carrie. We have 4 segments, and we're almost done the first.
All right.
So what I want to do is, we learned a little bit about FSL here in this first segment. I want to dig a little deeper into some of the work that you're doing and how you guys are innovating, because you've been around almost 50 years, but you've had to innovate and change over time.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing a lot of great stuff, and you are going to be doing even more great stuff into the future. You've been listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I've got Carrie Smith here in the studio. She is the Chief Operating Officer of Foundation for Senior Living. Stick around. We're one down. We got 3 more to go. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're in our second segment. If you're just tuning in, I've got Carrie Smith here in the studio with me. She is the Chief Operating Officer for Foundation for Senior Living, otherwise known as FSL. And I want to give a big shout out because I am so impressed with this organization. I've been impressed since I started with my family's business. Great resource here in our community. 602-285-1800 is their phone number, or look them up at fsl.org. You know, we really delved into some of the programs that they're doing, and I'm just in awe in what you're doing. And unfortunately, you can't do it alone. And you have partners, and we need more partners. We need more resources because we are aging at such a rapid rate. I mean, we're talking about the 85-plus category. We're talking about between now and 2040 that's going to triple, and by 2050 could quadruple.
Yeah.
So the needs are just through the roof. Through the roof.
The first time in our country's history, we're going to have the biggest demographic shift. By 2035, we're going to have more older adults, 65 and older, than we will people under the age of 18.
Isn't that crazy?
It's unbelievable.
So 1/3 of our population, Carrie, 65 and older, presently lives home alone.
Yeah.
And the prediction is by 2040, that number is going to inch up close to 50%.
Yep.
So we have a big job to do. And you guys not only provide these great resources, you even asked me to do this, but I'm giving the big shameless plug. On the top of their right corner on their website says donate. And we donate, and I would encourage you to take a look at that because they are a 501c3.
Yes.
And they require money through philanthropy, through grants, through all other means that they can get so they can run these programs.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Bob. You're absolutely right. And even if we do get government contracts, it doesn't always cover the cost of care, right? And we know that there's a lot of things that are, that you have to help families with. And
their budget's tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So that's the only way you can afford to do the things that you do.
For sure.
And staying power. The fact that you're celebrating 50 years next year.
I know. I can't believe it.
Are you guys having a party?
We're planning something. So you will definitely be on the invite list. We'll get you more information.
Yeah. I've been to a few of those parties. They're definitely worth celebrating because you guys are doing some great things.
Bob, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that workforce issue.
Please.
Because I think people don't realize what's coming, but the latest statistics say by 2030 in this country we're going to have a shortage of 8 million people to fill direct care roles. That's a huge number.
It is.
So we need to work together, as you said, as providers to figure out some solutions about how we're going to care for this aging population.
Well, and the state has taken a big initiative to doing that. I mean, they have put together some programs where they are trying to bring, educational facilities together. They're trying to bring partners like FSL and partners like Cypress together to try to attract more people into this workforce. There's Pipeline AZ. There's a number of things that are out there, but the startling stat here in Arizona is by 2026, we are going to be short about 120,000 direct care workers just right here in our state.
190 by 2030.
And of those 120, 2/3 are replacing people that are retiring out.
Yeah.
So we haven't been backfilling direct care workers.
Yep.
So I'm making this appeal to our listeners. If you or someone has a caring spirit and wants to make a difference in someone's life, this is a great field to be in. And it's a great launching pad to other opportunities in healthcare.
Like you said. It's getting you to the next step if you want to go into a nursing field or other type of healthcare professional
therapy or even administration. I mean, it's a great way. I mean, it's funny because I grew up, in a different era, and the Dustin Hoffman movie with Mrs. Robinson. If you remember at the very end, it was plastics, my son. You want to get into plastics. Well, healthcare is huge. And, for those that are graduating or thinking about degrees, healthcare is a launching point to so many different areas.
Yeah.
It's a great career.
Well, like you said, the rewards that you get as a caregiver, I mean, you actually go home every day feeling like you made a difference. You made a difference in somebody's life. And you don't always get that in a job.
So, we're doing radio, and I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh.
So, stories are great, and you probably have so many of them in terms of the families and individuals that you've helped. And, if you would just indulge me, I mean, just even the stories about helping people with affordable housing and maybe doing retrofitting, please, do you have a story that you can share with us?
Yeah, so when you talk about affordable housing, you were at our Hope in Motion event that we do every year.
Exactly.
And we had a wonderful, wonderful, brilliant woman who spoke, and she lives in one of our affordable housing communities. And she told her story, and she was once homeless, and I think there's a stereotype around homelessness. And
no kidding.
And honestly, it is one-time homelessness happens. This is not. This is situational for a lot of people.
Yeah, it
They
is.
worked their whole career, and some life-changing event happens, and they're now homeless. So she told her story about her journey. Her husband passed away, and she was living up north, and they'd lost their business through the Rodeo Chetaskai fire. And then her husband passed away, and she found herself with a health condition that would not allow her to work anymore. And so, she found herself homeless. She was really couch surfing, as she called it, living with friends, and that's really not a way to live as you're aging in place. And
No,
so
it's not.
she got connected to FSL and got into one of our affordable housing communities and is thriving. She's thriving. So again, I think just having impact on people's life is really what drives me every day and drives most of us in this field.
Her story was so moving because, she talked about the work she's doing now in a career. And, I think there's that stigma when you think about a homeless person because, she didn't look anything close to what I would have envisioned.
And the majority of them don't.
And it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, she was homeless. I mean, she just had bad luck.
Yeah.
Losing her spouse, her home, and then having bad health. But she looked great, and I was so appreciative of her sharing
she's
the story.
thriving. And even when I think about our adult day health centers, we've helped folks who have had, a traumatic brain injury, a life-changing event, a car accident or something that literally changed their life overnight. And they found, that they didn't have their job anymore or their friends, different group of friends. And so by coming to our adult day health centers, they're able to reconnect with people. It's really changing your life. It's rebranding yourself, right? And giving you a chance to just live and thrive.
Right. And gosh, I mean, here she is. She's a productive member of our community, contributing and making difference in other people's lives today. So just amazing.
Yeah.
You talked about partnerships, and we're going to talk in the second half maybe a little bit about innovation and technology.
Yeah.
But you guys have a partnership with a tech company here, Waymo?
Yeah, so we've been helping a little bit with the messaging. We're not quite to the point where we're actually delivering transportation yet, but I think that's going to come as they test and kind of build that system.
Sure.
I think there's great opportunity in that driverless field for especially our aging population. So
especially the ones that don't drive and can't get out.
yeah, exactly.
Yep. But I know that you guys have talked about that partnership, but it's still
evolving.
It's still evolving.
Yeah, it's still evolving, and I know that they're heavily invested in the market here and testing the technology, and they're taking little incremental steps because of safety and doing the right thing and trying to really make sure that it's ready to be deployed to an older population.
I see their cars everywhere.
Yeah, and
they're mapping the streets.
to help them understand the population, which I think is incredible.
No, I really do. I think that's incredible too. And the last piece I want to talk about before we break is food insecurity.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing a lot in that area.
It's something that we're heavily invested in, and we know that a majority of our clients live on Social Security, one income, very small check, and a lot of times by the end of the month it's gone, right? And so we find even in our affordable housing units that by the end of the month they just don't have enough to buy food. And so each one of our affordable housing properties, we have about 25 across the state right now, we've made sure that we have food pantries on each site where we're bringing in food to make sure that those folks have access to food. So just thinking differently about how do we bring services to people where they're at.
Right. Right, and food is just so important.
It's basic. If they
Right.
don't have food, that impacts their health, their mental health. There's just so many things that happen when you don't have adequate nutrition.
Well, no, the hardest thing that we see that, a lot of older adults are choosing between getting their prescriptions or getting food.
Hmm.
And, sometimes they're bypassing the prescriptions because they just cost way too much.
Or they split their meals. I mean, we find so many older adults that they can afford really one meal a day, and they split it between two of them.
Wow.
So, not only not being able to afford prescriptions, but we find husband and wife, a lot of times they'll have to split a meal because they just don't have enough. So we've just got to make sure that we're investing in the right things. That social determinant of health is really, that is the driver. And if we don't invest differently our healthcare dollars and really focus on those social determinants of health, we're not going to be able to serve the population as it grows.
Well, you guys been working on social determinants of health since you guys started.
We have.
I mean, you didn't need the buzzword to
We
get
didn't.
started in that.
We were in it.
You were definitely in it. So we're coming up on winding down our second segment.
Okay.
But, one of the things I want to tee up is your caregiver house. You have this caregiver training facility that is like nothing I've ever seen before. That launched, about 10 years ago?
Yeah, a little bit more than that.
A little more than 10
yeah.
years ago. It is absolutely brilliant. And the reason why I think it's brilliant, and certainly, I'm making this appeal to people out there that are thinking about retrofitting their homes for an older adult. You guys have thought of everything in that place.
Yeah.
Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, making it ergonomically accessible for someone, whether they're in a chair or whether they're using a walker. It's just so important. And I think so many homes just aren't prepared for that. We're at halftime here. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Carrie Smith's here in the house. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Money Radio Studios here on Cinco de Mayo. And if you're just tuning in, I've got Carrie Smith, the Chief Operating Officer from Foundation for Senior Living, otherwise known as FSL. Their phone number, if you need to reach out to them, is 602-285-1800 or go out to fsl.org. If you missed our first half, you can catch it up on our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show. You can catch this one and many, many more. In our first two segments, we really talked about the origins of FSL, and they're coming up on 50 years. They get involved in so many different things. I'm looking at your website, and I love the way you categorically placed all the services because you do so many things. A safe home, which is affordable housing, adult behavioral health, therapeutic homes, assisted group living, nutritious meals. You talked about the food pantry. You got senior living centers in Wickenburg and Peoria. You got health and wellness. You talked about recreation. We talked about Care by Design. I love that name. Home health and community action programs. And then the caregiver support piece is one that I really want to talk about in this segment because this is something near and dear to my heart. We ended the last segment, our second segment, we ended it talking about the family caregiving house, but you also do family caregiving education, you do caregiving services and supportive services. Real quickly, tell me a little bit about the origin of that and a little bit of what you're doing with caregiving services. And I know that there's a kind of a pause on training just because there's a lot that has happened since COVID.
Yeah, definitely. So the caregiver house was something we envisioned a little over 10 years ago, and we really wanted a place to show, not only to train our own staff, but a place to be able to show the community how you can adapt a current home or you could build a new home. So really giving options to folks so they could see more of the universal design. Again, our focus helping people stay at home in community for as long as possible. So we wanted folks to see some of the small things they could do to their house to make it safer, as well as if they were building a new house, what are some of the things you want to think about? So that's really the design idea around Care by Design or Caregiver House.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense, and I want listeners to hear this. And just as we ended the second segment, I talked about the fact that, there are very few homes. I think it's like 3% of the homes here are fitted for people that are disabled and people that are aging. I mean, whether it be stairs, whether it be, just a step here and there. I mean, these are things that you need to think about. And especially as an older adult, and I consider myself one now that I crossed the 60-year-old mark. If I were buying a house right now, a brand new house, I'd be thinking about, is this the place I can age in?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you'll have limitations
You
otherwise.
want big open spaces. You don't want to have a lot of steps up and down.
Big doorways so you can get a wheelchair through if you needed it.
You want to make sure that your showers are accessible for you as you age.
Right.
And thinking about all of those things, all the adaptions that you need to have as you're aging in place.
And looking at your website, and I know that I remember talking to Tom about this prior to his departure. I mean, FSL can mean Foundation for Senior Living, but it also means faith, services, and life.
Yeah,
and I like that.
Yeah, we're a faith-based organization.
Of course.
We want to help people with services, throughout their life and support their families. Going back to the family caregiver and just the whole caregiving education, every client that we serve, every family member that we serve has access to resources. So it's not necessarily a standalone program. Every service that we provide gets people connected and provides support for them on their journey. And so we can make referrals internally to our Care by Design care coordinators as well as our external partners. But again, that education piece happens in every program every day.
And that's really important for our listeners to know because, it's that one number, call. And, if you're needing help or someone that needs help, call this number.
Yep.
We'll get you connected to the right people.
All
whether
they have
it's
to
us,
say is, I need help. I have an aging family member or friend. Who can I talk to? And the front desk will get them connected.
No, I love that about what you guys do. And that really is a differentiator. And that's why you guys have been around for almost 50 years.
Yeah, for sure.
And your location has been the same location the entire time, has it not?
No, we've moved around a little bit, but we do own that building at 12th Street and Thomas. So we've been there since 2000. I think we moved in August of 2000. So we've been there for a number of years.
And that is, it's so central to Phoenix.
Yep.
So how long have you been with the company, Carrie?
I'm in my 30th year with the company.
No way.
Yeah, this August 30 years. Yeah.
Are you the longest term?
No, I don't think so.
You've got others that have been there?
We
wow.
have folks that have been there longer than
And this to see the growth has been just sort of phenomenal.
I started my career as a social worker. I graduated from ASU and found my way to FSL as a social worker in one of our healthcare centers. So very passionate about the work that we do. And again, like I said, anybody that's interested in a career in caregiving, you do have impact in people's lives.
And, to think that you've been there for 30 years and the changes that you've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, the changes in Phoenix alone.
Yep.
But the changes in needs and the changes of the way things are being delivered is really what sets you guys apart. And you guys are probably thinking outside the box in terms of how to change in the way we deliver things because the needs are changing.
Yep, absolutely. Family dynamics, where people live, how long they're living. You and I talked a little bit before we jumped on the radio today, but just looking at people's longevity, and not only are we living longer, but now we have pockets, right? We have food islands and food deserts, they call them, and we've got a lot of things happening, and we got to make sure that we're investing in our community in the right way so that everybody has a chance to have access to services.
So it would go without saying, the pandemic.
Yeah.
How did that affect you guys? And being the COO of this large organization, I mean, you obviously had remote workers, you had people coming back. Are you still remote? Are you still back?
So
walk me through that.
We never really shut down. We do such essential work in a lot of our programs that we pivoted quite a bit. I think we moved a lot of our admin staff to a remote, and we, thank goodness, had the capabilities through our IT technology to be able to do that already. But the majority of our staff actually worked the front lines every day. They showed up every day, either at a facility or at a client's house.
Wow.
And so we had to do all that we could do to make sure, one, that they were safe, they had all the tools and resources that they needed to provide good quality care to the individuals that they were caring for, and that we were connected. Even though a lot of times some of us were in a remote, we had to stay connected. We did literally stand-ups every day as a management team, where we were just addressing the most critical needs of that day to make sure our team members had what they need to do business. But The nice thing about FSL, one of the things that I'm just excited about, is that we've always been that community partner that anytime there's been some crisis, we show up. And our funding sources, our entities that we partner with know that about us. And so we pivoted quite a bit in areas where we had our congregate settings shut down because everybody was shut down.
Yeah,
we
that'd
took
be
the
hard.
staff and we redeployed them in other areas. And we helped the community with emergency assistance. So we turned a lot of our staff into case coordinators where we helped deploy the dollars that were helping with utility and rent and mortgage assistance. I think we helped with about $16 million worth of business.
Wow.
To help folks, just survive every day.
Survive.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I know you talked about the communal living. I mean, obviously the senior centers, they couldn't operate.
For a period of time.
And that'd be so hard.
What we did for folks that were normally attending the senior center is we just got them into home delivered meals.
Nice.
So we didn't stop nutrition services. They just didn't come to a congregate setting. We delivered to their house. So throughout the pandemic, we provided home delivered meals to those folks.
I love that.
Yeah.
As we wind down this third segment, tell me what it looks like today. Do you have a hybrid, or is everyone back?
So we do have a hybrid. So
Okay.
we still have been in hybrid mode for office and admin staff. And of course, like I said, the majority of our staff show up every day at a facility or somebody's house. So that hasn't changed.
No, I love that. And my last question to you, and we may pivot and talk about it in the fourth segment, being the chief operating officer, me, the managing partner, culture.
Yeah.
Culture's got to be, a little more difficult having come through this and not seeing people every single day.
Yeah.
So music's on, so I think we got a little Who there, James. Thank you. Thank you, James, for taking us out with a little Who. But when we come back in the fourth segment, I want to talk about culture, because I know it's embedded in your organization, and faith is such a big part of that, and people are so much a big part of that. How does that look today, and what do you foresee that looking like tomorrow? And then I want to talk about technology and innovation and how that may change and shape our world as we deliver care to older adults. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I've got Carrie Smith, the Chief Operating Officer from Foundations for Senior Living here. Stick around. We got one more segment. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And if you're just tuning in, we're in our fourth segment. I've got Carrie Smith here, the Chief Operating Officer for FSL, otherwise known as Foundation for Senior Living. I want to give them another plug. They do such great work here in the community. If you're needing sources, resources, just information, or you want to make a donation, call 602-285-1800 or go out to fsl.org. So, Carrie, when we left off in the third segment, we talked about the pandemic and what it did to your organization, like it did to so many of ours, so many others, and mine as well. It kind of fractured us, kind of separated us. And, how do you establish culture? How do you stay connected? And one of the things that you said during our break was communications was so important.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to talk a little bit about how FSL did that.
Yeah. And again, I don't know that we have a magic wand, but I think like any organization, you just keep trying new things, right? To stay connected to your folks. We are all over the state, so we've always had that kind of, how do we stay connected to everybody? Not everybody operates right here out of Phoenix. And so we've done a lot of things through technology, so holding state of the agencies virtually, where people can log in wherever they're at and hear from our leadership team about what's happening in the organization, ask questions so that they can, feel a part of what's happening from a day-to-day perspective. But right when COVID happened, we were kind of trying to figure out how, as an organization, because we're all over the state, do we stay connected and not be so siloed? And as an organization gets bigger, you get more and more silos, especially when you're somebody like us who are in a variety of different industries. And so we established the One FSL campaign.
Oh, I love it.
One FSL. We are One FSL. We're not adult day health services. We're not just affordable housing. We're One FSL. And really trying to help our programs see that they're connected to something bigger that has impact. And so we try to just deliver that message as One FSL. I know that Tammy Bohannon, who's our CEO, when she started, she really talks about her True Blue team, and True Blue to her is dedicated, compassionate, committed individuals, and that is who we are at FSL. So when she talks to the organization and the team, being all of us, we're the True Blue team, and so it's really trying to build a culture around those kind of things.
Sure, and Tammy came on during the pandemic. That's not an easy task.
It's not, but she has been seamless. I mean, she came in a year ago. She just had her year anniversary with us in February, and she fits like a glove. She's perfect.
No, I love it. I love it. And I had a chance to meet her, and I'm getting a chance to meet with her next week, so I'm really looking forward to getting to know her better.
Well, you're going to have a treat. So.
Well, I love that. I love that. And I love how, you had, what did you call it? The something of the agency, the
State of the Agency.
State of the Agency.
Yeah.
So that was a recorded piece that people could.
Well, they were live, and so people could log in live, or if they worked a shift, because again we have 24-hour programs, then it was recorded, so they had access to it afterwards.
And does it still exist today?
Yeah. So we were trying to do them every quarter. Sometimes it's every 6 months, but yes, a regular pulse check-in with our team.
I love that.
To just provide updates on where we're at, where we're headed. How the organization is doing. So it could be some financial information as well as new programs, innovation, some things that we're doing with employee services, and then just some exciting things happening at the program. So again, people feel like they're a part of one FSL.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
It's a great segue when you use the word where we're at and where we're going.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk to you about where are we going. You've got 30 years in the business. Cypress is in our 30th year. I'm 20 years at the helm. You and I have known one another a long time.
Yeah.
Where do you see us heading? I mean, what's the future look like?
Well, I think my fear is that we have to embrace the fact that things are going to look different, and we can't be stuck in the old ways of doing things. And if we are, we're going to be in really big trouble. So I just embrace, if everybody can just embrace the fact that things are going to look different in 10 years, and we need to be okay with that. With a caregiver shortage like we're headed to, 8 million people, we're going to have a void of 8 million people in the direct care world.
That's crazy.
By 2030.
Yeah.
We can't, and when you look at the demographics and know that by 2035 we'll have less people under the age of 18 than we will older adults, we can't keep up. So we're going to have to think differently from a technology perspective.
And 8 million people, but we're not counting those family caregivers, are we?
Yeah.
We got over 50 million
Yeah.
family caregivers that are making a difference in people's lives. And they need tools,
They
need access to resources.
And they need a break.
Exactly. So technology, we had a little bit of conversation on this.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going? I mean, look, ChatGPT is a big deal.
Yeah.
Everyone's probably downloaded the free version. If you haven't, I have.
Yeah,
You should try it out.
Yeah.
It's pretty slick.
It is pretty cool.
It is really cool. And I'm playing around, and Dan, who's here in the studio, knows I'm playing around with this Otter AI thing that records conversations. Where do you see this playing out for us?
I'm going to date myself a little bit
That's
here,
okay.
but I have always envisioned, at least even pre-pandemic, because I saw this trend coming, that we're all going to have Rosie the robot from the Jetsons in our house. And if you're familiar with that series, I think we're going to have it happen in the next 10 years. We're going to have something that's going to replace some basic things in the home to help support people as they age. Homemaking, all the way up to maybe even some light personal care. Through robotic and AI technology. It's going to happen.
Well, what's really cool, what's happened with the pandemic, there is some good that has come out of it. I mean, look at that. Restaurants now are not building restaurants, they're building kitchens.
Yeah.
I think Sam Fox has put up a couple of these that are producing meals that you can drive by and pick up, or you can get home delivered. So, I mean, we're figuring out how to deliver meals at home. We're using telemedicine now, where, you can visit your doctor and not have to physically get in the car. There's so many things that we have that are in our toolbox or about to be put in our toolbox that we can utilize today and certainly tomorrow, and not have to wait 10 years to make care efficient and accessible to everybody.
And it's going to be good because I can tell you I was a caregiver for both my mom and my dad before they passed, along with my family members, and it's hard work.
Oh, it's so
draining.
Hard.
And what you find is that you don't get to spend the quality time with them that you really want to, because you're doing so many other things for them. And I think if we can embrace technology so that it can do the things that we need it to do from a caregiving perspective, so we can still have that quality time with our family members, it'll make all the difference.
Well, I think tech is one of those things, but I also think, and it's a great time for you and I to make this appeal to our listeners, is that the data point that is out there, and it's 10 years old, so it needs to be refreshed. It's from AARP, and that is couples caring for one another 65 and older without assistance from family members, friends, neighbors, or even professional home care agencies like ours or an organization like FSL. 63% of the time, the caregiver predeceases the care recipient, and how important it is for them to get respite and to be able to get help. They do.
And it's okay to ask for a break, too. I think that's part of it, is that they feel like they need to do this,
right.
and they need to ask for a break. It's okay to ask for a break.
But sometimes the ones that don't ask, we see people in the community. I always say, don't ask, just do.
Yeah.
If you're making a meatloaf or a casserole, make two and drop one off.
I love that.
Be there to assist them. But
help your neighbor.
We as a society need to keep our eyes open. We need to know what's going on with our neighbors. We need to be more friendly. We need to be able to be open-minded. We need to be thinking more than us about others. And listen, through this pandemic, some good has happened, some bad has happened. I mean, I think our country, there's a lot of angry people out there.
Yeah.
And I think the politics and media hasn't really helped things. But I also have seen so much
Me
kindness. And
too.
people being really kind and being generous and being helpful. And I think we need to really, really stand on that and really grow that kindness.
Yeah.
Doing nice things for others. It's like paying it forward. We need to do more of that.
Yeah. Give the gift of yourself.
Carrie, we got about 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Any lasting thoughts you want to leave our listeners? I've loved having you here on the show talking about FSL.
Gosh, lasting thoughts. I don't know. I just would embrace, reach out, call if you need help. There's a lot of agencies and organizations out there. So just pick up the phone and call. That's your first step.
One stop shop.
Stop.
Yep.
One call. Give us a call at
one
FSL.
call, that's all. 602-285-1800. Carrie Smith, thank you for joining me. It's so good to have you on the show. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We will be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.